I feel we owe it to the island spirits that we have learned to come to know to let it be in the end the way that the YouTube algorithm intended it to be, for these winners to crush the endgame. Ladies and gents, internet, my name is Peridiam, and let's get started. For those curious, I'm defining the endgame of a season of Survivor to be around the final 7 or so. It depends on how many players are cast, from 16 to 20, but to keep it consistent, I'm looking toward the latter third portion of the game. You know, the end of it. Here's number 5. Upon first watch, I didn't realize how much I would come to enjoy this winner's endgame after the season was over. Digging deeper into their day-to-day play-by-play, I really liked where their head was at and what they were setting up for themselves. So much that I have come to have it this high. And that endgame is from Adam Klein on season 33, Millennials vs. Generation X. Starting at the final 7, Adam has intentionally set himself up to have a bunch of big jury threats as shields ahead of him. David, Jay, and Brett. All 3 of these players could have potentially beat him, and so he consistently ensured they would get voted out before reaching the final tribal council. At the final 7, he threw the challenge and helped Ken win it to prevent both Jay and David from being immune, forcing Jay to flush his idol later that night. Throwing challenges became a staple of Adam's complicated endgame, but it was all because he didn't need safety. He just needed to ensure that his targets didn't have it either. So once Jay's idol is flushed at the final 7, he gets beat at the immunity challenge at 6 and is voted out, and then plans to take out David at the final 5. This plan doesn't work out as intended, as Adam gets blindsided when Brett, another of his targets, is voted out at this point, but I'm not here to tell you that Adam's endgame was perfect, just that it's one of my favorites. Adam does misplay his idol, and maybe probably shouldn't have talked too much to Hannah at this point, but he was never going anyway, and he knew that. Again, Adam's endgame is defined by how many shields were ahead of him and how he locked in a final 3 from early on, guaranteeing he had the votes to keep himself protected. So when he gets to the final 4, he does his best to ensure that anyone but David wins the final challenge. Best of all, Ken won it, and that meant David, the biggest threat in the game, was going to the jury. Was any of this ever 100% locked in? No, which kind of made it more exciting and less predictable. Adam won the game securing all 10 jury votes, and it was because he knew his own threat level throughout the season and how he stacked up compared to his peers. I think there's a lot that can be learned from his positioning, and for those reasons and more, that's why his endgame is in my top 5.
If they want to put themselves in a position where they're left with myself, Hannah, and Ken, I love that.
And you can't beat David.
I'm not planning on taking David to the end.
Ken gonna try again to change it.
Ken, come back. Ken, come back. Ken, come back.
Whoa, nice save by Ken.
Really, Adam?
Ken wins individual immunity.
Yeah, I wanted to do everything I could to help Ken, because the most important thing about the challenge is Jay did not win and Dave did not win.
Forcing my hand.
I'm not forcing anything.
Yes, you are. I'm not going home, Adam. It's me and you till the end.
I can't waste my opportunity.
Me and Adam are both out here for our families, for our moms. He's not a weasel in my book anymore. He's a good freaking dude. He's a warrior.
Ken is going for number 12 while Adam just watching. Adam now stepping off his platform. Adam's strategy worked. David now working on his 6th, and Adam is sitting on 8. Adam just watching, once again taking the defensive position in this game to let somebody else mess up.
I'm sorry that I was rooting against you so hard at the immunity challenge, but I basically gave up my shot at immunity just to make sure that you didn't win. If they don't vote you out, I lose the game. So what does it matter?
Number 4. Surprise. And surprise again. My 4th favorite winning endgame is from Season 9 Vanuatu, and it's Chris Doherty, the last man standing in a tribe of very cutthroat women. Vanuatu was a season divided between the men and the women, and come the merge, the men were outnumbered and were quickly picked off one by one until we reached that fated final 7, where Chris began to make his move to go on to win the season against all odds. Because as Chris would tell us, you give those women enough time and they will cut each other. Chris held out hope and positioned himself within the power players who were calling the shots well enough to be spared for last. But come the final 7, a pecking order was made known to the women on the bottom. Scout and Twyla knew they weren't in the best spot by this point and were going to be outnumbered once Chris or Eliza left, so they pulled in him as the outsider, got him to rope in Eliza as their 4th vote, and Chris was off to the races. One of my favorite blindsides in Survivor history, the strategist Leanne is taken out first, followed by Amy, the figurehead of the Women's Alliance. But even then, by the final 5, Chris was in the thick of it and was comfortably positioned between two duos, Eliza and Julie and Scout and Twyla, and he picked the side that he believed he was more likely to beat out in the end. He knew Twyla had upset the jury, and he could beat both her and Scout in challenges, so that was the direction he took. Despite being the frontrunner to win, and despite not winning immunity at that point, Chris was at the right place at the right time, and that made a world of a difference for him. You always hear about how the social game reigns supreme, and man, that is never more important than right here. He had fostered good relations with everyone in the game. I mean, that's why he was spared until the final 7 anyway, and from the final 4 onward, he won both immunity challenges, took Twyla to the final 2, and delivered one of the best final tribal speeches we had ever seen. Chris never had a vote cast against him in his endgame. He won 3 immunities and received 5 jury votes to win. And overall, I just think it's this fun story of a massive underdog finding his footing and demonstrating to the audience that no matter how bleak your future can look right now, never give up hope.
Am I willing to do it? Damn right I'm willing to do it. I'll turn the tide. I'll take the risk right now.
12th person voted out of Survivor Vanuatu.
Strategically, this is the best thing for me. I don't even think they're looking at me. I mean, I'm just sitting back and watching them shoot each other.
13th person voted out of Survivor Vanuatu. Amy.
I don't trust Scout. I don't trust Twyla. I don't trust Eliza. I don't trust Julie. And they don't trust each other. And the most screwed up thing about it is, I think they all trust me.
14th person voted out of Survivor Vanuatu. Julie.
I didn't come here to get second place, and I sure as hell didn't come here to get third or fourth. I come here to win.
15th person voted out of Survivor Vanuatu. Eliza. 16th person voted out of Survivor Vanuatu.
I never dreamed I'd be where I'm at. No way. And it's still hard, you know? It doesn't quit. I guess it'll quit when I walk off this island and it's completely over.
Number 3. Chalk it up to the queen on the chessboard that is the game of Survivor. My third favorite endgame from a winner goes to Parvati Shallow from Season 16, Micronesia, Fans vs. Favorites. This season's endgame mostly starts around the time that James is medevaced for an infected finger at the final 7, although most signs point to the Black Widow Brigade voting him out here anyway, assuming he doesn't win immunity. The iconic alliance of the Black Widow Brigade runs the post-merge of this season. They are the focus of the dominant strategy from the middle to the end of the game, and it's at the final 6 that we see them have to first eat each other. Parvati is in the power position, having an alliance with both Amanda and Cirie, her 2 faves, and then also Natalie and Alexis, her 2 fans. Eric is the clear outsider, but he wins immunity, and so all sights are now on Amanda. But Amanda finds an idol thanks to Exile Island and only shares this information with Parv. These 2 women team up to take control of the endgame, alongside Cirie, of course. And it's their clever guile that leads to Alexis being blindsided at the final 6 tribal council. The final 5 is one of the most well-known in Survivor history. The Black Widows managed to spin Eric into a tizzy, what a tangled web they weave, after he wins immunity and appears to be safe. But first, Parvati is sent to Exile Island to track down the final idol of the season, and even though we don't see it on screen, she did say that she found it, but also left it back on Exile. Hey, what happens on Exile stays on Exile. As far as she was concerned, holding the idol meant that she was going to have to burn and disappoint her ally, Natalie. Because having the idol meant that Natalie would expect her to play it on her, and Parvati wasn't planning on doing that. I love the guts it takes to ditch an idol in the endgame. It is just another notch on her belt that comprises an impressive resume. But of course, the Black Widows blindside Eric after he gives up immunity to Natalie, and then Parv has to unfortunately finally cut Natalie at the final 4. Since the very beginning, she wanted a final 3 with Amanda and Cirie, and she got it. But then a surprise final 2 showed up due to the lopsided medevacs on the season causing a stir in the production schedule, and so Parv was in an interesting spot. Because she knew both Amanda and Cirie would take her to the final 2, and she didn't want to be the person to cut either of them for fear of losing their jury vote, she threw the final immunity challenge and left it up to fate. Almost similar to Richard Hatch from season 1. Amanda went on to win, she took Parv to the final 2 as Parv expected, and then Amanda went on to give a pretty lackluster final tribal performance. There is a lot to chew on with Parv's endgame, so many different talking points of complex strategies and iconic moments, and so much personality comes out with her and how she takes the crown. What's left to be said?
It's like the Black Widow Brigade. Like all the girls are coming together and we're spinning the guys around as much as we can, just spinning them until they don't know which way's up. And then we're devouring them, one at a time.
It's at camp. You're experienced under the flag. How did you do that already? I didn't get it yet. I need your help. Oh.
The only person that's voting with me tonight is Parvati.
Amanda has become like my little sister in this game. I can't vote for her, and I won't.
Amanda, I absolutely adore you. This is one of the hardest votes I'll put in.
I just want to say, when I told y'all I didn't have it then. So I didn't lie. But I got it!
12th person voted out a survivor and the 5th member of our jury.
You're crazy. You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever in the history of Survivor ever.
13th person voted out and the 6th member of our jury, Eric. That's 3, that's enough. Need to bring me your torch. I think that is what you call a life lesson.
Number 2. How do you say number 2 in llama? Yes, my number 2 is Tony Vlachos from season 28, Kagian, and I'm a major fan of what Tony accomplishes this season and how wild he gets as he outplays the rest of the cast en route to $1 million. We get the amusing Jeff for Blindside at the final 7 after he swore that wasn't going to happen. He swore it wasn't going to happen. And he did it again because he had just done it to LJ a few episodes prior. We see him whip out his bag of tricks, threatening Cass to vote him out if she so dares, which she didn't, but still. Tony bluffs with his idols, one of them being immensely powerful, a little too powerful, playable after the votes are read, and claims at the final 5 that he's actually immune at the final 4, and if the rest of the tribe want to try to vote him out, go for it. It'll be their demise. Tony was lying, but he still didn't get any votes cast against him. At the final 5, we had the wild fallout between him and Cass, the llama talking, Wu feeling like he's this foreign exchange student, Spencer just throwing his arms up in the background for the 20th time. And then of course this leads to Trish and Cass getting into a major spat. Tony is left with a massive decision for his endgame. Given he had 2 idols at the final 5, the last time idols could be played, would he save Trish or cut her loose? He decided to cut her loose, which proved really difficult for him given she was his closest ally all season. But the fact of the matter was that Cass was someone he wanted to take to the final tribal and beat, and Wu was loyal to a fault, so it just came down to beating Spencer at the final 4 immunity. And that's what happened next, and if he had kept Trish, who knows if that would have happened. Cass put off one of the biggest immunity challenge upsets we've ever seen, and Spencer was voted out. From there, Tony was in a strange final 3 that still had one more round to go. Another surprise final 2 was upon us, and he was sandwiched between his buddy pal Wu and his llama goat Cass. Wu won the final immunity, which should have spelled Tony's demise, but this is Tony, he's my number 2 in this video for a reason, and he pulled a rabbit out of a hat when he managed to convince Wu to take him to the final 2 over Cass, a much easier opponent to sit next to. Wu chose brawn over brains, and it cost him a lot of money, arguably the worst move in Survivor history, as Tony went on to sweep the jury 8-1. The high, wild, unicorn energy from Tony is tough to overlook or ignore, and I'm not going to start doing that today. He's my number 2 and was pretty damn close to being number 1.
She just sits there with the same grin on her face, mad, happy, sad, crying, and she calls me an animal. So I had to talk to her like I'm an animal. So I said, so she could understand me, and she got offended by that, Jeff. It's just a joke. Wow. It could only be played with 5 remaining players left. That's the last time I can play it. So the way I used it tonight is by wearing it around my neck. If my name appears 3 times, I'm going home tonight. I hope that's not the case. So I want to be as subtle, as soft as I can, but at the same time, aggressive. I'm just planting the seeds once again, hoping something catches. If you're in control, if you're in the driver's seat, and you take Cass, you have 0 chance of winning. Do you believe that or no?
Why is that?
15th person voted out and the 9th and final member of our jury. Cass, need to bring me your torch?
Number 1. I almost feel like a montage of clips is more appropriate for this entry than any words I'll cook up, so let me just keep it brief. A sneaky misplay, a split vote blindside, a badass idol play, all leading to a guaranteed spot at the final 3. My number 1 favorite endgame by a Survivor winner goes to Natalie Anderson from season 29, San Juan del Sur. From the final 7 elimination of Alec, where she purposely votes him out but plays it off like she wrote the wrong person's name down. She blames her own allies for Alec leaving despite doing it herself and knowing she did that. They even question if Alec somehow voted himself off. She wins both reward and immunity at the final 6 and finally gets her sweet revenge on John for taking out her ally Jeremy several rounds prior. John has an idol in his pocket, but Natalie leads the charge to split the vote between him and his girlfriend Jacqueline, convincing Keith, Missy, and Baylor to join her in the blindside. And then she turns around and plays her idol at the final 5 and blindsides Missy and Baylor by using the idol on Jacqueline, the intended target for elimination, to split up the Gilmore goats, sending Baylor to the jury. This move positioned Natalie perfectly because everyone in the final 4 was closer to her than each other. Had Keith won immunity with Baylor still in the game, Natalie is much more likely to be toast, but with Baylor gone, Jacqueline wins immunity and the 3 ladies vote out Keith. Not to mention, Missy was in crutches, so if Jacqueline isn't there, it's basically Natalie and Baylor versus Keith in the final 4. Natalie gets no votes cast against her in this endgame and gets every vote from the jury outside of the loved ones and Reed, who just wanted to be petty toward Missy. And that's it. As Jeremy would go on to say, Nat balled out. And there's a good reason that the first ever video on my channel was inspired by her. What can I say other than it was inevitable?
Alec, need to bring me your torch.
I mean, I think I sold it to them properly, but it's gonna be scary. But John is on my hit list. He's been on my hit list since he sent Jeremy home, so it's been a long time coming. I need to make some moves soon. It's time to, buck up and make every decision moving forward count. I have one shot to prove to myself that, I left everything on the table and make these last 4 days fully worth it. John and Jacqueline think we're all voting out Keith, and Keith is going home. But my plan is to basically get out John. My ultimate plan is to split the votes and blindside John tonight.
John, we have a 3-way tie. 12th person voted out and the 6th member of our jury. John, that's 2, that's enough. Need to bring me your torch.
Jacqueline, did you vote for who I told you to vote for? I'm playing this for Jack.
Okay. Jacqueline, does not count. Jacqueline, does not count. Jacqueline, does not count. 13th person voted out and the 7th member of our jury. Baylor, need to bring me your torch.
That was a really good blindside. I'm not mad at Natalie. That was a really good move.
The one move I made that ended up changing the course of the game for me after was voting you all.
I knew you would say that.
And those are my top 5 favorite Survivor winner endgames. But those are only 5 out of over 40. They all bring something to the table, so let me know any of your favorites that I didn't talk about. Some honorable mentions go to Vesepia on season 4, Tom on season 10, and Jeremy on season 31. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons for supporting my endgame. I appreciate it. You guys voted for who I told you to vote for, right? I hope you all enjoyed the video, and don't forget, on your way out, you can't win Survivor in the early game, only lose it. And I will see you in the next one, once I probably end up being a first boot.
First person voted out of Survivor San Juan del Sur, blood versus water. Nadia. Nadia, the tribe has spoken.
I hope Natalie wins it all. It's gonna be hard without a loved one there with her, but I'm gonna be rooting for her all the way. The push to do something for Nadia and, make her proud and say that, you know what, you guys are gonna vote her out first. I'm literally gonna be the last one standing.
The winner of Survivor San Juan del Sur, Natalie